Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Nitai Sachinandana Gaura Hari Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Premanande Hari Bol. We'll start with the pranam mantras. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kada Mahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhannitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagalpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Haripriye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Preshthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirail Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopakumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha. So we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 10, Verse 20. I'll share my screen. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.10.20. Anyonyamasit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra purastrinam sarvashruti manohara. Anyonyamasit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra purastrinam sarvashruti manohara. Anyonyamasit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra purastrinam sarvashruti manohara. Any devotees would like to chant, please?
Anyonyam asi sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra purastrinam sarvashruti manoharaha. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. Anyone else?
Anonyamasat sankalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra purastrana strinam sarvashruti manoharaha.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Anyonyam asit sanjalpa uttama shloka chetasam Kauravendra purastrinam sarvashruti manoharaha.
Thank you, Prabhu. So I'll read the synonyms. Anyonyam, among each other. Asit, there was. Sanjalpa, talking. Uttama shloka, the supreme, who is praised by selected poetry. Chetasam, of those whose hearts are absorbed in that way. Kaurava Indra, the king of the Kurus. Pura, capital. Strinam, all the ladies. Sarva, all. Shruti, the Vedas. Manahara, attractive to the mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation: absorbed in the thought of the transcendental qualities of the Lord, who is sung in select poetry, the ladies on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapura began to talk of him. This talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. Purport: in the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that in all Vedic literatures, the goal is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. Factually, the glories of the Lord are depicted in such literature as the Vedas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata. And in the Bhagavatam, they are specifically mentioned in respect to the Supreme Lord. Therefore, while the ladies on the tops of the houses in the capital of the kings of the Kuru dynasty were talking about the Lord, their talk was more pleasing than the Vedic hymns. Anything sung in the praise of the Lord is Shruti Mantra. There are songs of Thakura Narottammadasa, one of the Acharyas in the Gaudiya Sampradaya, composed in simple Bengali language. But Thakura Vaishwanath Chakravarti, another very learned Acharya of the same Sampradaya, has approved the songs by Thakura Narottammadasa to be as good as Vedic mantras. And this is so because of the subject matter. The language is immaterial, but the subject matter is important. The ladies who were all absorbed in the thought and actions of the Lord developed the consciousness of Vedic wisdom by the grace of the Lord. And therefore, although such ladies might not have been very learned scholars in Sanskrit or otherwise, still whatever they spoke was more attractive than the Vedic hymns. The Vedic hymns in the Upanishads are sometimes indirectly directed to the Supreme Lord. But the talks of the ladies were directly spoken of the Lord, and thus they were more pleasing to the heart. The ladies' talks appear to be more valuable than the learned Brahmana's benedictions. Hare Krishna. So I seek blessings from all the devotees assembled so that I can speak something which makes sense and which is pleasing to the devotees, Guru and Krishna. So this context, as we all know, is Krishna is planning to leave Hastinapura, and of course, devotees are going through these emotions of anticipation of the separation. And we have seen from the previous verses, many devotees very nicely spoke about various aspects, various kinds of emotions and various kinds of expressions of that emotions. And in this verse specifically, this is describing the glorification of the transcendental qualities of the Lord or pastimes of the Lord by the ladies of Hastinapura. Of course, in those days, majorly the ladies will be standing a bit far from the maybe the center usually. So the ladies were on the roofs of all the houses of Hastinapura. So they were looking from there. And then many other personalities are very close to Lord Krishna also. But they were standing a bit far physically. But their hearts were very, very much connected to Krishna, even though they were not able to speak face to face to Krishna. But what they how they utilize that time is by speaking about Krishna between other ladies. And it is described here that this talk was more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. So we have seen some Brahmanas were chanting the hymns of the Vedas, glorifying Krishna or even blessing Krishna from last week we heard. But it is mentioned that this seemingly simple talks about the pastimes of Lord Krishna in comparison to the hymns of the Vedas, which requires some scholarship and some qualifications to learn the Vedas in the specific way and chant the Vedas in a very, very particular way. There are strict rules even to pronounce each and every letter, each and every even word, and the tone, how the hymns of the hymns are being chanted. So I remember from my childhood, we had we have a very famous Shiva temple close to our house, and then sometimes the Brahmanans will come there, assemble there, and on particular days chant the Vedic mantras. And it was very difficult to follow them. Of course, we did not have any printouts or something in hand, so we could only hear. But even the tone by which they were chanting was very special, and it was not so easy to follow that tone as we are chanting these Bhagavatam verses, which is somewhat easy to follow. But those Vedic hymns, they had a particular tone, etc. It was very difficult. So that requires some sort of qualification, some practice, and things like that. But it is mentioned that this seemingly simple but very transcendental talk about Krishna's qualities were more attractive than the hymns of the Vedas. So Srila Prabhupada often speaks about this aspect that becoming a Vedic scholar is one thing, but what is the purpose behind that? So as we all know from Bhagavad Gita, we have several places it's mentioned in Vedic literatures, but very, very celebrated verse from Bhagavad Gita 15:15. It mentions that Veda ischa sarvair ahameva vedyo, the third line, and Vedanta krit Veda videva chaham. So Krishna very directly speaks that by learning the Vedas, the purpose is to know Krishna. And then he clarifies that he is the compiler of the Vedanta, and then he is the knower of the Vedas, ultimate knower of the Vedas, because he is the source of all the Vedic scriptures and Vedic hymns, literatures, etc. So if someone learns Vedic hymns somehow or other, and if that person doesn't know the purpose behind is to know Krishna, or going one level ahead and start serving Krishna, and then becoming or re-establishing the lost relationship with Krishna. If they don't know that is a purpose, then they are lost. Their whole life is waste. So there are many verses from different scriptures. We can see that this particular aspect is emphasized. So with my limited capacity, I would like to mention some of those verses from different scriptures, which I got inspired by mentioning this aspect specifically. And we also hear that the gopis of Vraja, they were also not the so-called scholars of the Vedas, but they all got the conclusion of the Vedas. Krishna revealed that to them. And that is ultimately love of Krishna. And they had spontaneous love towards Krishna. So here also these ladies, they were not scholars of the Vedas, but because of their sincere devotion to Krishna, Krishna revealed them also what is the ultimate knowledge. And then they were able to spontaneously speak about Krishna instead of, probably they were also crying or going through the different emotions, but they did not get stuck there, but they started speaking about the qualities of Krishna, which is very, very inspiring to us also. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela, there is chapter 7, verse 74, which glorifies the holy name, which goes like this: Nama vinu kalikale nahi ara dharma sarva mantra sara nama ei shastra marma. In this age of Kali, there is no religious principle other than the chanting of the holy name, which is the essence of all Vedic hymns. This is the purport of all scriptures. So this is very straightforward. It describes the glorification of holy name and mentioning that the essence of all Vedic hymns is chanting of the holy name, especially in this age of Kali. And this is a purport of all scriptures. So the conclusion of all scriptures is chanting of the holy name. Even Bhagavatam is concluded by glorifying Harinam Sankirtan. And Bhagavad Gita also describes Yatnanam Japayatnyosmi. So the Nama Yajna is the topmost sacrifice also. And on the other side, Bhagavad Gita also describes the majority of Vedas are not directly glorifying the Lord. Instead, what is that? In Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, we have a few verses, verse 42, 43, and then 45, which speaks something like, men of small knowledge are very much attached to the flowery words of the Vedas. So the Vedas are 99% are describing about the Karmakanda rituals. So the flowery words, something like, you do this, you will get this, etc. Of course, it is a gradual elevation for the humanity, and which recommend various fruitive activities for elevation to heavenly planets or resultant good birth, power, and so forth, etc. So if somebody is looking for sense gratification and opulent life in a material way, I just need this. I have so and so rituals. I will do this ritual stand or make the Brahmin stand in my house or in the temple, and then I'll get these benefits and I'm happy. I don't need anything else. That's the end of the life. And verse 45 of chapter 2 Bhagavad Gita describes the Vedas mainly deal with the three modes of material nature. But Krishna also speaks that rise above these modes, O Arjuna. So there Krishna gives the absolute truth. Be transcendental to all these Vedic hymns in that sense. Be free from all dualities and anxieties for gain and safety, but be established in the self. And in chapter 9, verse 20, one of the aspect is that those who study the Vedas and drink the Soma juice, seeking the heavenly planets, worship me indirectly. So in this today's verse, purport also Prabhupada mentions the Vedas speak of Upanishads, etc., speaks about the Lord only, but indirectly. So Bhagavad Gita also clarifies that aspect. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, there is a verse from chapter 6, 168. It describes about the comparison of Buddhism and Mayavada philosophy. The Buddhists do not recognize the authority of the Vedas, therefore they are considered agnostics. However, those who have taken shelter of the Vedic scriptures yet preach agnosticism in accordance with the Mayavada philosophy are certainly more dangerous than the Buddhists. So it describes Mayavadis are more dangerous than the Buddhists because they emphasize that there is no form for the God and everything is one. You are God, I am God, and that formless God took a material form and all sort of nonsense philosophy. So that is more dangerous. So there are many people, even I have seen, I have heard from also mentioning these aspects that Krishna is limited to this tiny form. He's a small child, and so that means there is no absolute form for God. Everything is one, etc. All sort of not making sense kind of philosophies. And in Chaitanya Charitamrita Antyalila, there is a very nice verse, 1625, which is also there, or which is taken from Hari Bhakti Vilasa. This is describing about, again, this aspect of scholarship without accepting Krishna as the Supreme Lord. And the verse is also very nice. So I'll quickly chant. Name bhaktas chaturvedi madbhaktas swapachah priyah tasmai deyam tato grahyam sacha pujyo yathahyaham. Even though one is a very learned scholar in Sanskrit literature, if he is not engaged in pure devotional service, he is not accepted as my devotee. But if someone born in a family of dog eaters is a pure devotee with no motives for enjoyment through fruitive activity or mental speculation, he is very dear to me. This is same as the definition of bhakti from Nectar of Devotion. Anya abhilashita shunyam jnana karma dhyanavritam. Exactly same thing described in this. No motives for enjoyment through fruitive activity or mental speculation. And he is very dear to me. And all respect should be given to him, and whatever he offers should be accepted. For such devotees are indeed as worshipable as I am. So this is what Hari Bhakti Vilas mentions. So we can see this common conclusion of truth described in different scriptures, and that itself is very, very convincing. And in another place in Chaitanya Charitamrita, this is taken from Padyavali. And I really like this verse and the translation. So I'll chant this verse, which is small verse, but very nice. Shrutim apare smritim itare bharatamanye bhajantu bhavabhitaha ahamiha namdam vande yasyalinde param brahma. So this is recited by Raghupati Upadhyaya, which is mentioned in Padyavali, which is a collection of various verses by Rupa Goswami. This is repeated in Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela 19.96. He describes those who are afraid of material existence worship the Vedic literature. Some worship Smriti, the corollaries to the Vedic literature, and others worship the Mahabharata. As far as I am concerned, I worship Krishna's father Maharaja Nanda, in whose courtyard the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Absolute Truth, is playing. So this is his mode of devotion. We hear various self-realized devotees will have attachment to, sometimes they have a friendship mood, sometimes a parental mood. So here he is glorifying Nanda Maharaja. He is worshipping Nanda Maharaja because Krishna was playing in his courtyard, or Krishna is playing in his courtyard eternally. And he is describing that those who are afraid of material existence, they worship the Vedic literature. So they just want to get out of this material world somehow or other. But they don't have, either they don't have the knowledge that, beyond this material world, there is a spiritual world where Lord is playing his pastimes and we are his eternal parts and parcels, and our eternal position is to be with him in mood of service, in various modes. And we have an individual identity in connection with Krishna, etc. So they don't have those knowledge, or sometimes they don't want to accept that, but they just want to get out of this material world and just join the Brahma Jyoti. So they are afraid of this existence, but so they take shelter of Vedic literature and looking for some sort of Sayujya Mukti. But much more sweeter is what Raghupati Upadhyaya also describing. I worship Nanda Maharaja because Krishna played in his courtyard. And we have many pastimes. Another pastime is the wives of the scholarly Brahmanas. So when Krishna and Balaram wanted, when they were hungry, when they sent some Gopas to collect some food. So they went to this Brahmins, and they were completely absorbed and busy with doing this Vedic sacrifices, and they were scholars in Vedic literature. So they were not feeling like paying attention to these boys, so they kind of ignored them. Then Krishna told these boys when they came back, you go and ask their wives and see what happens. So they went and asked their wives, and they were very happy. They were waiting for that moment to be in service to Krishna. So immediately they took all those paraphernalia, even some of the paraphernalia which were kept for the yajna to Krishna, because Krishna is the Yajnapati. So they had that knowledge, the ultimate knowledge, even though they were not scholarly in Vedic literature. So, and another pastime is a little different, but in the same line, when Krishna was invited by Duryodhan for very opulent lunch in Hastinapur, Krishna did not want to go there. He told, I'm not looking for food, but I'm looking for love. So he immediately went to Vidura's house, because he knew that they love him. And whatever little offering they gave, that was completely satisfying for Krishna. Even Vidura's wife gave the peel of the banana because she was very excited, in ecstasy. But Krishna accepted that with full love. So that is the mood Krishna is looking for. Krishna is looking for love from his parts and parcels, because he is the source of everything. He's the most beautiful person, most opulent, etc., source of everything. Why will he look for anything else from anybody else? So he has everything. So there is one more pastime I would like to describe. This is from my hometown, Guruvayur. It's not a hometown, but our hometown is close to Guruvayur. So we were very attached, even still now, attached to the Guruvayur temple. It is described that the deity of the Guruvayur temple, which is in South India, in Kerala, state Kerala, the deity was the same deity which was worshipped by Lord Krishna when he was in Dwaraka. So when in Dwaraka, Krishna was playing the role of a grihastha. He had many wives, and then he used to do household duties also, including deity worship. So he was worshipping a Krishna deity, and that same deity is currently being worshipped in Guruvayur temple. So around 500 years ago, maybe a couple of decades after Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left this world, there were two very exalted devotees of Krishna living in the place in Guruvayur. One of the devotees' name is Melpatur Narayana Bhattatri. He composed a summary of whole Srimad Bhagavatam, around 1,000 verses. So he summarized the whole Srimad Bhagavatam. There is a history behind that, so I'm not going into the details. And there was another devotee called Puntanam. He also composed some very nice songs and verses about Lord Krishna. And the first devotee called Melpatur, he was a Sanskrit scholar. And the second devotee, Puntanam, he was not a scholar. He was he did not know any Sanskrit Vyakaran or anything like that. So he composed his verses in his own mother tongue, which is Malayalam. But Melpatur composed his verses, summary of Bhagavatam, in Sanskrit. So now Melpatur is also a very nice devotee, but somehow or other, maybe divine arrangement, he was a little bit proud about his Sanskrit scholarship and his, he composed this summary study, which is called Narayaniyam. So one day, Puntanam, he composed his verses in mother tongue, very simple language. Even within that language, he was using very, very simple, commonly used words. Now, there are other scholarly words even in that language, like any other languages. But he was not very scholarly even in his own mother tongue. So he used very simple language which could be understood by any person. And it very nice. We got the opportunity to study that also. Very nice. So he describes many of the Bhagavad Gita principles in simple languages, even Karma Kanda, Jnana Kanda, etc., and then concludes with Nama Sankirtanam, etc. So very nice composition. So one day he, since he wanted someone else to check his, verses, because he thought he's not a scholar, so there must be some mistakes in my composition. So he approached Melpatur thinking that he's a very elevated scholar, accepted scholar, so he will correct me if there are some mistakes. So when he approached Melpatur, he was a little bit proud. So he thought, these verses are written in simple Malayalam language. I don't think I am required to correct this. Any small persons can correct it. So he told, I don't think you need to approach me for these kind of simple things. Something like that he responded. So the other devotee, Puntanam, felt very sad, but he did not, insist. So he went back. That day night, Melpatur had a dream. In his dream, Krishna came. And Krishna came and spoke one little sentence. That was enough for him to get what Krishna is telling. So he mentioned him that I like the bhakti of Puntanam than your vibhakti. Now vibhakti is grammatical descriptions in Sanskrit language. So Krishna is mentioning Melpatur that, of course, Krishna liked his composition also, the summary study of Bhagavatam. But just to save him from the pride, he mentioned that I like Puntanam's bhakti more than your vibhakti. Your composition has nice Sanskrit composition, but I like the other one. So he got it immediately because he's also good devotee. Little bit pride was there. So immediately next day morning, he searched for Puntanam and then found out where Puntanam is. He approached him and apologized, and then asked his composition. He looked through that and then gave whatever feedback is required. So this describes that Krishna is looking for our bhakti, not anything else. Now, very good example is Vyasadeva himself. So we all know that Vyasadeva was in charge of dividing the Vedas into 4 different Vedas so that it can be expanded and at least the people in Kali Yuga especially can understand something. So he did that, and after that he was not satisfied. So he also wrote Itihasas, Mahabharata, etc. And so that even the low class people, not so scholarly, can also understand the Vedic concepts. But even after that, he was not satisfied. And then finally, as we know, Narada Muni instructs him to glorify Krishna directly. So in chapter 4 of first canto, there are few verses in which Vyasadeva is mentioning that I am feeling incomplete, though I myself am fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord, which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. So in next chapter, which is 1.5, so Narada Muni appears in front of Vyasadeva, and then he asks, how are you feeling and things like that. He knew that, something is happening with Vyasadeva's heart, not completely satisfied. So he describes or he instructs Narada Muni to glorify Krishna directly. So I'm looking for a verse which is it is in chapter 5. I was looking at chapter 4. So here Narada Muni described to Vyasadeva that you have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. That philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord is considered worthless. That is like a heavy, heavy instruction. All these Vedic literatures and Mahabharata, etc. After he's writing that, his spiritual master is telling, if you don't glorify Krishna directly, then all this, all of your work is worthless. But Vyasadeva was a very, very humble, submissive disciple. He was looking for such instruction. So after hearing from Narada Muni, Vyasadeva went into a meditation, and then finally he started glorifying Krishna directly in Srimad Bhagavatam. There are many descriptions in this chapter 5, how he was feeling and what he is glorifying, etc. And in Bhagavatam, we can see that towards the end of the Bhagavatam, the last canto 12, chapter 13, verse 15 is glorifying Bhagavatam, especially. Sarva Vedanta Saram hi Shri Bhagavatam ishyate tad rasamrita triptasya nanyatrasya adriti kvachid. Srimad Bhagavatam is declared to be the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. Again, it comes here. One who has felt satisfaction from its nectarian mellow will never be attracted to any other literature. So this is very, very wonderful that just by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, just by listening to Srimad Bhagavatam, just by absorbing in Srimad Bhagavatam, we get the full essence of the Vedanta philosophy. And once somebody is starting to like Srimad Bhagavatam, its nectarian mellow, then that person will never be attracted to any other literature. And we can see this same thing from the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam also. The very, very famous verse, 113, third verse of Srimad Bhagavatam. Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam shukamukhad amritadrava samyutam pibata bhagavatam rasamalayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavuka. So it describes Nigama kalpataror galitam phalam. It is a mature fruit of the Nigama kalpataru. Nigama means the Vedic literature. Kalpataru is the desired tree. So Bhagavatam is the mature fruit of all Vedic literatures. And especially when it comes emanated from the lips of Shukadeva Goswami, the sweetness increases. So it is more tasteful. And its nectarian juice is already relished by the liberated souls. But when it is spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, it is more relishable. So we can see that, on one side, this is the Vedanta philosophy, the Vedic literatures are there, the hymns of Vedas. When it is matured, it becomes Srimad Bhagavatam. So what would we like, or what should I like? The beginning stage of a fruit or a mature fruit? Of course, we all like the mature fruit, which is very, very sweet. And there is no need of force to someone to eat a very ripened mango. Naturally, people will be attracted. Like that, when somebody is in touch with Srimad Bhagavatam once, they will not be able to go back to get stuck to the Vedic literatures, other Vedas. Of course, we appreciate Vedas. They are emanated from the mouths of Krishna. Source is Krishna himself. We all appreciate. But when we taste Srimad Bhagavatam, then we just want to get absorbed in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. And that we know from Kapila Deva's teaching, another famous verse, Satam prasangan mama virya samvido bhavanti hrit karna rasayana katha. So the Vedic philosophy, Vedanta philosophy becomes hrit karna rasayana katha. It becomes the mature, the nectarian mellows, pastimes of Krishna, which is very, very relishable for the ears and also for the heart. And when someone learns or understands or relish Srimad Bhagavatam, what do? Bhagavad Gita 10.9. Machitta madgata prana bodhayantah parasparam kathayantascha mam nityam tushyanti cha ramanti cha. Simply speaking about the glories of Lord Krishna, they will feel ultimate ecstasy, that sweetness in their hearts. That is the aim. Now, in this purport, Srila Prabhupada mentions about Narottam Das Thakur's bhajans. As we heard that many times from his lectures, that Narottam Das Thakur's bhajans are as good as the scriptures, which is confirmed by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So there are many wonderful bhajans by Srila Narottam Das Thakur. So I would like to touch upon a few of them, at least a couple of stanzas, which describes the beauty of his bhajans. Very simple language, but he is describing the same Vedic philosophy there. One of the bhajan is the Dhanamora Nityananda. This is from his famous Prarthana set of songs. So in this, there are 3 stanzas in that. The second one goes like this: Vaishnavera Padadhuli Tahemora Snane Keli Tarpana Mora Vaishnavera Nama Vichara Korya Mone Bhakti Rasa Aswadane Madhyastha Sri Bhagavata Purana. So the meaning in English is, the dust of the devotees' lotus feet is my bathing water. The chanting of the devotees' names, not only Krishna's names, devotees' names is my satisfaction. Considering the merits of all Vedic literatures in the light of devotional service. So he actually connects the Vedic literature to the devotional service. So considering the merits of all Vedic literatures in the light of devotional service, I have concluded that the Srimad Bhagavatam is the best of all scriptures. So it looks like a simple bhajan. Anybody can understand this, but he's giving the ultimate essence of all the again Vedic literatures. Veda ischa sarvair ahameva vedyo. Knowing Krishna and knowing that the devotional service is the ultimate aim of life, and also this service of Krishna, of course, plus service of the devotees of Krishna. That's why he's mentioning the dust of the devotees' lotus feet is my bathing water. And in another bhajan, which is also very famous, Sri Rupa Manjari Pada, he describes that Sei Mora Rasa Nidhi, Sei Mora Vancha Siddhi, Sei Mora Vedera Dharama, Sei Brata, Sei Tapa, Sei Mora Mantra Japa, Sei Mor Dharama Karama. They are the perfection of rasa, and they are perfection worthy of attainment. They are the very law of the Vedic scriptures for me. He's describing about taking the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Manjari, Rupa Goswami, in his eternal form, Sri Rupa Manjari. That is his object of worship. So he's telling that is the very law of Vedic scriptures for me. So for him, taking the shelter of Sri Rupa Manjari is the ultimate aim, and which is a law of Vedic scriptures. So he is seeing Vedic scriptures, or the conclusion of Vedic scriptures, as like this, taking the shelter of a pure devotee, especially Rupa Goswami. And they are the meaning of all my fasts and penances and my silent uttering of my mantras. They are the basis of religion and activities. So he's very directly, not indirectly, very directly clarifying that by following Vedic literatures and Vedic scriptures, maybe we might follow some penance and fast and rituals and various activities by following the Vedas. All those things should culminate in a devotional service of the Lord and the devotion and the service of his pure devotees. So he's giving that simple technique how to achieve Krishna Prema through his bhajans like this. And then Nitai Pada Kamala, we know that very famous about Lord Nityananda, how to take shelter of Lord Nityananda's lotus feet and feel that ecstasy, etc. It goes like that. Several bhajans are there. And then there are other acharyas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur's bhajans. These are all describing, these are all Vedic literatures only, but they are giving the conclusive truth in a very simple way. And in Padma Purana, there is this celebrated verse, which which is very inspiring. We have heard this many times from Prabhupada. Naham tishtati vaikunthe yoginam hridayeshu va yatra gayanti madbhaktaah tatra tishtami narada. So Krishna is telling, Naham tishtati vaikunthe. I'm not in Vaikuntha. So he's speaking to Narada. Narada, I'm not in Vaikuntha. He is, but he's telling, no, he's not having the ultimate happiness being in Vaikuntha, but something beyond is there. Beyond Vaikuntha, he's having more happiness. Where? Again, he's telling, nor am I in the hearts of the yogis. Even though he is, he will show himself to the yogis. But he's telling, Yatra gayanti madbhaktaha. Wherever my devotees are singing my glories, tatra tishtami narada. There I am. I remain there where the devotees are glorifying my name, form, qualities, transcendental pastimes, etc. So that is Krishna's mood also. He sees the ultimate happiness in association of his own pure devotees when they glorify him. Of course, their only business is to glorify Krishna's pastimes. And especially with Narada Muni, there is a glorification of Narada Muni in chapter 6 of first canto, verse 38, which translates like this: all glory and success to Srila Narada Muni, because he glorifies the activities of the personality of Godhead, and so doing, he himself takes pleasure. That is one thing, but his intention is not just to be happy by himself, and also enlivens all the distressed souls of the universe. So Narada Muni is so compassionate. Whenever he meets, of course, he is traveling all around. That is his service, and he meets many people. He wants to give Krishna Prema to everyone. So he himself is glorifying, and he's having ultimate happiness, taking pleasure in that, and then he's passing that to other people also, all over the universe. So I will stop with one more verse. This is from Rupa Goswami's Namashtakam, and this glorifies the Veena of Narada Muni. Narada Veeno Jivana Sudhor Minirya Samadhuri Pura Tvam Krishna Nama Kamam Spurame Rasane Rasena Sada. O Krishna Nama. So the Namashtakam is fully glorification of Krishna Nama, which is non-different than Krishna himself. So this is the last verse of Namashtaka by Rupa Goswami. O Krishna Nama, O inspiration of Narada's Veena. So Narada's Veena is inspired by Krishna's name. It is not inspired by the Vedic hymns. More than that, it's inspired by Krishna's name, very direct. You are full of sweetness, which is like an ocean full of waves of nectar. Again, this is addressing Krishna Nama. If you wish, please appear constantly on my tongue, along with transcendental affection for the Lord. So please, prayer to the Krishna Nama itself. Please appear in my tongue, along with the transcendental affection for the Lord. That is the ultimate aim of chanting of the holy name also. Any Vedic literatures, understanding, studying, hearing, the ultimate aim is to develop the love for Krishna. So as we know, Lord Chaitanya's teaching is Srimad Bhagavatam itself. Or the other way, Srimad Bhagavatam is same as Lord Chaitanya's teaching. And Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all Vedic literatures. That means Lord Chaitanya's teachings are the topmost of all Vedic literatures. And what is Lord Chaitanya's conclusion? Harinam Sankirtan, right? In Shikshashtakam, he glorifies in the first verse itself, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. So he is distributing the love of Godhead, Krishna Prema, and he's simply asking us to just chant the holy name. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And that's enough for, of course, everything else follow that. So studying the scriptures will also follow the chanting of the holy name. The first thing is chanting of the holy name. To improve the chanting of the holy name, to feel the taste in the holy name, we study the scriptures. So we are not denying the scholarship of scriptures or studying any of the Vedic literatures, but the purpose we should not miss. That is the whole instruction given by Srila Prabhupada, even in this today's verse purport. Whatever we do, including study of Vedic literatures, don't forget the purpose, which is to develop love of Godhead. And in this age of Kali, the best way to develop the love of Godhead while we study the scriptures and do any other devotional service is chanting the holy name of the Lord. So Harinam Sankirtan Yatni ki jai, Shri Shri Nitai Sachinandan Dev ki jai, Samaveta Bhaktavrindi ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Hare Krishna. So I request devotees to please correct me or provide your realizations in this regard, if time permits.
I think we have some time. As you can see, some devotees, Prabhu, very nice, very complete, and also revealing the mind of the Lord and his dear devotees. As you can see, there's some devotees preparing some seating for
Hariparshad.
yeah, there's a Q&A session coming along. Paramakara Prabhu, do we have time for questions or realizations? I know Prabhuji doesn't want to, Prema Vardhan Prabhu doesn't want